The old data crystal had been sitting in the forgotten corner of the archive for 6,000 years before Risha Ven finally picked it up. She was young by Velari standards, barely 200 years old, with pale blue skin and 4 delicate antennae that twitched whenever she found something interesting. Her job was simple: organize ancient navigation records that nobody cared about anymore. It was punishment for asking too many questions at the last council meeting. But Risha liked questions. Questions were how you found answers. She inserted the crystal into her reading device and watched as holographic star charts filled the air around her. The maps were beautiful, showing trade routes and colony worlds from an age when her ancestors first learned to sail between stars. She traced the glowing lines with her fingers, following paths that merchants had traveled millennia ago. Then she noticed something strange. Every map, regardless of when it was made or who made it, showed the same empty space. A region in the galaxy's outer arm was marked with a single symbol that translated roughly as "Do not enter." Risha pulled up another crystal, same empty space, same warning. She spent the next 3 hours checking every record she could find. Maps from the Velari, maps from the Malari, maps from species that had gone extinct before humans learned to make fire. All of them agreed that region of space was forbidden. The strange part was the timing. These restrictions predated human contact by thousands of years. The oldest warnings were written when humans were still living in caves and hunting with sharp rocks. Nobody knew they existed. So why was their future territory already marked as dangerous? Risha's antennae stood straight up. This was wrong. This was very wrong. She dug deeper into the archive's restricted files, using access codes she probably should not have memorized. What she found made her stomach turn cold. 17 expeditions had been sent into that forbidden zone over the past 10,000 years. Ships from 12 different species, carrying scientists and explorers and military commanders who wanted to know what was out there. None of them ever came back. No distress signals, no debris fields, no final messages. The ship simply flew into that empty space and vanished like they had never existed at all. You should not be reading those files. Risha spun around. Old Soren stood in the doorway, his ancient body bent with age. He was the oldest Velari she knew, nearly 4,000 years old, and his skin had faded to almost white. "I found something," she said. "The restricted zone, it was marked before we knew humans existed. How is that possible?" Old Soren's eyes went dark with something she had never seen in him before: fear. "Some borders exist because what lies beyond them wanted it that way," he said quietly. "What does that mean?" But he was already walking away, his footsteps echoing in the empty hall. Risha turned back to her research. She was not going to let this go, not now. She found fragments of old transmissions, pieces of expedition logs that had been recovered from the edge of the forbidden zone. Most were corrupted beyond reading, but a few words survived. "Something is watching us. The stars are wrong here. It knows we are here. It has always known." The final document she found was a classified first contact report, dated 4,000 years ago. It described a species called human, and assigned them a single classification that made Risha's blood freeze. Apex predator, do not engage. Humans had been part of the galactic community for 2 centuries. Risha had met several of them. They seemed friendly enough, if a bit strange. They laughed too loud and formed attachments too quickly and had a disturbing habit of adopting dangerous creatures as pets. But this report was written before any official contact. Someone had been watching humans for thousands of years. Someone had decided they were dangerous before they ever left their home world. And someone had drawn a line around their territory and told the entire galaxy to stay away. Risha saved everything she had found to a private data chip. Tomorrow she would start asking questions, real questions, the kind that got people into trouble. As she left the archive, she passed a viewport showing the stars outside. Somewhere out there, beyond the mapped regions of space, was the answer to a mystery that had lasted longer than most civilizations. She was going to find it. She did not notice the shadow that moved in the corner of her vision. She did not see how it stretched longer than it should, darker than any natural shadow could be. But she felt something watching her. She told herself it was just her imagination. It was not. 3,000 years before Risha was born, a Velari exploration vessel drifted toward an uncharted blue planet. Captain Valles stood at the sensor station, watching data scroll across his screens. The planet was beautiful, covered in water and green landmasses, orbiting a stable yellow star, and it was inhabited. Primitive radio signals detected, his officer reported. They are still using combustion engines and chemical rockets, pre-spaceflight civilization. Valles smiled. Finding new species was rare. Finding one this young was a gift. They could observe, document, and report back to the Council. Perhaps in a few thousand years, these creatures would be ready for contact. Set observation protocols, he ordered. We watch from a distance, no interference. That night, something found them. The ship's lights flickered, sensors went blind, and in the darkness outside the viewport, something moved, something vast and patient that had been waiting for visitors. Captain Valles never filed his report. His ship was never seen again. But his final transmission survived, recovered centuries later from a relay beacon at the edge of the system. There is something here, something old. It does not want us near the planet. I think it has been protecting them for a very long. The message ended there. Risha read the transcript for the 5th time, her antennae flat against her skull. She was sitting in a quiet corner of the station's observation deck, hiding from the eyes of her superiors. What she had discovered was dangerous knowledge. You look like you have seen a ghost. Risha jumped. A human woman stood beside her, holding 2 cups of something warm. She had dark skin and kind eyes and moved with the quiet confidence that Risha had noticed in all humans. Ambassador Okonkwo, Risha said, I did not hear you approach. Call me Kira. The human sat down beside her and offered one of the cups. I have been watching you for the past few days. You have been digging through the archive's restricted sections. I am curious what you found. Risha hesitated. Humans were part of this mystery. Could she trust one? But there was something in Kira's eyes that suggested she already knew more than she was saying. I found records of your species, Risha said carefully. From before we officially met you, someone was watching your planet for thousands of years. Kira nodded slowly. And you want to know why? You do not seem surprised. I am not, Kira sipped her drink. Humans have always felt like we were. Being watched, our oldest stories talk about guardians in the sky, spirits that protected us from things we could not see. We thought they were just myths. They were not myths. No, they were not. Risha showed Kira everything she had found. The restricted zones, the vanished expeditions, the ancient classifications marking humans as apex predators. Kira listened without interruption. When Risha finished, the human was quiet for a long moment. I need to show you something, Kira finally said. She led Risha to a private meeting room and activated a secure holographic display. What appeared was a recording, clearly human in origin, marked with classification stamps that Risha did not recognize. This was taken 50 years ago, Kira said. A human deep space probe entered the region you call the Forbidden Zone. It was supposed to map uncharted territory. Instead, it found this. The recording showed empty space, dark and cold. Then the probe's lights caught something. Wreckage, thousands of pieces of wreckage, drifting in an endless graveyard. Ships of every design, from species Risha recognized, and many she did not. Some of the vessels were older than the Velari civilization itself. They all went looking for answers, Kira said quietly. None of them came back. Whatever is out there, it has been protecting that region of space for millions of years. Protecting it from what? Kira turned to face her. Protecting it from everyone who might threaten what lives there. protecting humans. The question is, why would something that powerful care about a species that was still banging rocks together when the oldest of those ships was destroyed? Risha had no answer. I was sent here to find out, Kira admitted. Earth's government knows something is watching us. They want to understand what it is and what it wants. I have been searching the archive for months, but I keep hitting walls. I can help you, Risha said. I have access to records you cannot reach. Kira smiled. It was a warm expression, genuinely grateful. Then let us find out why the maps stop at human territory and why no one has ever dared to ask. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, something ancient took note of their alliance. It had been waiting a very long time for someone brave enough to seek the truth. The question was whether they were ready to hear it. 12,000 years before the first Velari ship reached for the stars. Small tribe of humans huddled in a frozen cave. Winter had come early that year, and the hunting had been poor. The elders said prayers to spirits they hoped were listening. The children cried from hunger. The hunters sharpened their spears and prepared to venture into the snow one more time. None of them saw the lights in the sky. A vessel descended through the clouds, sleek and terrible. Inside were creatures that had crossed galaxies looking for slaves. They had found dozens of worlds like this one, filled with primitive beings perfect for labor and entertainment. This blue planet would give them thousands more. The ship landed in a valley 3 hills away from the cave. Its crew emerged, scanning for life signs, planning their harvest. They never completed their scan. Something rose from the darkness of the planet itself. Not from the ground, not from the sky, but from the spaces between. It had no shape that eyes could process, no form that minds could hold. It simply was, and it was angry. The slaver ship screamed on every frequency. Then it went silent. In the morning, the human hunters found strange metal fragments scattered across the snow. They did not understand what they were. They collected the shiny pieces and brought them back to the cave as curiosities. The tribe survived that winter. They did not know why. Something in the darkness knew. Risha listened to old Soren tell this story in his private quarters, her heart's beating fast. The ancient Velari had finally agreed to share what he knew, though his hands trembled as he spoke. "How do you know this happened?" she asked. "Because I found the records," he said. "Buried in files so old they had been forgotten. The slavers were called the Drasani. They kept detailed logs of every world they harvested. This was the only planet they ever marked as forbidden without explanation. The Drasani Empire fell thousands of years ago. Yes, and no one knows exactly why. Some say it was civil war, some say plague." Old Soren's eyes were distant. "I believe something punished them for trying to take what was not theirs." Risha shared this with Kira that evening. The human listened with an expression Risha could not read. "We have stories like this," Kira said softly. "Tales of angels destroying armies that threatened our ancestors, demons dragging invaders into darkness. We thought they were religious fantasies. They were memories. Yes, I think they were." 3 days later, they found Captain Voss. He was a Malari, a species known for their cautious nature and long memories. He had spent 50 years patrolling the boundary of mapped space, and he had seen things he had never reported. "I crossed into the Forbidden Zone once," he told them in a quiet bar on the station's lower levels. "Engine malfunction. I drifted for 3 days before my systems came back online." "What did you see?" Risha asked. Voss's 4 eyes went distant. "On the 3rd night, something came to my viewport. It was not a ship. It was not a creature. It was something else. Something that existed in ways I cannot describe." "What did it do?" "It looked at me. I felt it look at me, not with eyes, but with something deeper. It saw everything I was, everything I had done, everything I might become." He shuddered. "Then it let me go. It pushed my ship back into safe space and vanished." "Why did it spare you?" "Because I was lost, not hunting. I was not a threat." Voss met their eyes. Whatever guards that region, it knows the difference between the curious and the dangerous. It judges intentions, not actions. That night, Risha returned to the archive to continue her research. She was alone in the ancient halls, surrounded by knowledge older than most civilizations. Then every light in the building flickered. Every screen displayed the same message, written in every language the galaxy had ever known. Your questions have been heard. Your curiosity is noted. Some truths are given. Others must be EARNED. Proceed with care. The message vanished. The lights returned to normal. When Risha checked the security logs, there was no record of anything unusual. She stood alone in the silence, her antennae trembling. Something had answered. Something that had been listening for a very long time. And for reasons she could not explain, she was not afraid. She was invited. She ran to find Kira. It was time to stop asking questions from a distance. It was time to go looking for answers at the source. 6,000 years ago, the Drasani Emperor made a decision that would destroy his civilization. He had heard the warnings about the blue planet in the restricted zone. He had read the reports of ships that never returned. He did not care. The Drasani Empire was the greatest military power the galaxy had ever seen, and he would not be told where he could and could not go. Those primitives will make excellent slaves, he declared to his war council. 3,000 ships, full invasion force, we take the planet and kill whatever has been protecting it. His admirals cheered. His priests blessed the fleet. 3,000 warships launched toward the Forbidden Zone, carrying enough firepower to crack a moon. For 3 days, the galaxy heard nothing. Then a single escape pod drifted back across the boundary. Inside was one survivor, a young officer who had been on the flagship. Her eyes were empty. Her mind was broken. She spoke only one word before her heart stopped. Shadows. The Drasani Empire never recovered. Within 2 centuries, it was gone, consumed by civil wars, mysterious plagues, and a creeping madness that seemed to affect anyone who had ever supported the invasion. No one spoke of the blue planet again. Risha thought about this story as the research vessel Quiet Dawn approached the boundary of mapped space. Archivist Prime Dellon had arranged their passage, using his authority to attach them to a legitimate scientific mission. Captain Voss had agreed to guide them, though his hands shook on the controls. Kira stood at the viewport, watching the stars thin out as they entered the empty zone. Second thoughts, Risha asked her. Always, Kira smiled. But I have spent my whole life feeling like something was watching me. I need to know what it is. A human scientist named Dr. Yuki Tanaka joined them at the viewport. She was old for a human, her hair white and her movements slow, but her mind was sharp. She had spent 50 years studying human mythology. I have a theory, she said, about why we were protected. Tell us, Risha said. Everyone assumes the shepherds chose humans because we were weak and needed help. I think it is the opposite. I think they chose us because we were dangerous. Dangerous? Humans could barely make fire when the protection started. Exactly, but look at what we became. We survived ice ages, we survived supervolcanoes, we survived ourselves, which is the hardest thing of all. Doctor. Tanaka's eyes were thoughtful. Humans are apex predators from a death world. Without guidance, we might have become the worst conquerors the galaxy has ever seen. The shepherds did not protect us from the galaxy. They protected the galaxy from us. Before Risha could respond, the ship's alarms screamed. A military vessel dropped out of hyperspace behind them, massive and bristling with weapons. Its commander's face appeared on their screen. Fleet Admiral Soren, a high-ranking Velari with cold eyes and colder ambitions. You will surrender your research immediately, he demanded. Whatever protects the humans could be the greatest weapon in galactic history. I intend to claim it for the Velari. Captain Voss cut the communication. We are not giving him anything. He will destroy us. Then we die knowing more than he ever will. The military vessel opened fire. The quiet dawn shuddered as its shields absorbed the first barrage. They could not win this fight. They could not run. They were trapped at the edge of the forbidden zone. Kira walked to the viewport and placed her hand against the glass. "What are you doing?" Risha asked. "Asking for help." Kira closed her eyes. Her voice was barely a whisper. "We need help, please, if you are listening, if you ever watched over us. We need you now." The weapon's fire stopped. Outside the viewport, the darkness began to move. Something was rising from the space between the stars, vast and ancient and impossible to comprehend. It was not a ship. It was not a creature. It was something that had existed before the galaxy was born, something that had chosen to watch over one small species on one small planet. And it was looking at the military vessel, with what Risha could only describe as disappointment. Fleet Admiral Soren's face appeared on the screen again. This time he was screaming. The shepherd had arrived, and it was not pleased. The entity that rose from the darkness had no shape that Risha's mind could hold. It existed in dimensions she could not perceive, filling the void between stars with presence rather than matter. Looking at it was like trying to see the color of silence or measure the weight of a thought. Her brain kept trying to make sense of it and kept failing. Fleet Admiral Soren's warship hung frozen in space. Its weapons were dead. Its engines were cold. Its crew was screaming. A voice spoke across every frequency, not sound, but meaning pressed directly into every mind. "You were warned." The warship did not explode. The shepherd did something far worse. Every crew member experienced their own history, every cruel order given, every innocent harmed, every choice that had led them to this moment of violence. They felt the pain they had caused as if it were their own. They saw themselves through the eyes of their victims. Most of them survived. They would spend the rest of their lives trying to become better people. Fleet Admiral Soren did not survive. His mind, so full of ambition and cruelty, simply stopped when forced to face what it truly was. The military vessel drifted away, crewed by broken souls who would never threaten anyone again. Then the shepherd turned its attention to the quiet dawn. Risha wanted to run, to hide, to be anywhere else, but she could not move. The entity's awareness held her like a gentle hand. "Daughter of Earth," the voice addressed Kira directly. "You called, we answered, your companions seek truth, shall they receive it?" Kira's voice was steady, though tears ran down her face. "They deserve to know, all of them do." The entity seemed to consider this. Then it did something unexpected. It opened a path. The darkness ahead of them parted, revealing something that should not have existed. An ancient vessel, human in design but impossibly old, drifting in a pocket of protected space. Its markings indicated it had left Earth 8,000 years ago. But humans had not achieved spaceflight 8,000 years ago. "Dock with the vessel," Kira said. "The answers are inside." Captain Voss guided the quiet dawn into position. The airlock connected with a hiss of ancient seals. The interior was dark and cold, preserved across millennia by technology far beyond anything Risha recognized. They found him in the central chamber. A human male, old beyond measure, held in a stasis field that had kept him alive since before the pyramids were built. As they approached, the field flickered and faded. His eyes opened. He looked at Kira first, and something in his ancient face softened. "Finally," he said, his voice was like stone grinding against stone. "You found me, I knew you would, I have been waiting." "Who are you?" Risha asked. "My name is Amos. I was the first human to walk between the stars." He sat up slowly, his joints cracking after their long sleep. 10,000 years ago, I stood under strange skies and asked the darkness a question. Are we alone? And the darkness answered. Yes, the shepherds heard me. They had been watching humanity since before we learned to speak. They saw what we could become, the good and the bad. They decided we were worth protecting. But why, Risha pressed, why protect one species for so long? What makes humans special? Amos smiled. It was a sad, expression full of ancient wisdom. We are not special because we are strong or smart. Other species are stronger and smarter. We are special because we can love things that are not ourselves. We tame wolves and make them family. We plant trees we will never see grow. We tell stories about heroes who died before we were born. He stood, supported by Kira's arm. The shepherds watched thousands of species rise and fall. Most of them could only love themselves. Humans were different. We could choose to sacrifice for others. We could look at something alien and strange and decide to protect it anyway. That is why the maps stop at human territory, Risha realized. The shepherds gave you time to grow. Yes, time to make our own mistakes, time to learn compassion through suffering, time to become worthy of the stars. Amos looked at her with eyes that had seen 10 millennia pass. And now you have come here, a Velari and a human working together to find the truth. That is exactly what the shepherds hoped would happen. The entity's voice echoed one final time. The student has asked the right question. Now she must carry the answer home. Risha understood. She had not come here just to satisfy her curiosity. She had come here to learn why humanity mattered. And to tell the rest of the galaxy